I put the Offroad Design custom leaf springs in my square body, and I want to make a video about it to maybe help someone that is considering doing it, and give some more info on them, and kind of a data point on lift height and tire size and how it looks, because there isn't a ton of that online. It's hard to find examples of the lift height, tire size, and then what will clear based on how much these springs flex and if they run true to size or whatnot. So to get that right out of the way, they are true to size. I got a 4-inch lift, and it was on the money. So I was expecting it to run a little bit tall. I know that they have a lot of arch to them because the weight of the truck alone will compress them to roughly middle of the travel. But I still expected it to sit a little bit high just based on what I read, and it isn't. It's right on the money, 4-inch with my truck anyway. So there's that. My truck's on 35s. I know for the longest time on square body trucks, it was 6-inch lift in 35s or 4-inch in 33s, and you could stuff bigger tires in, but they'd kind of look big. So they might look a little bit big on this truck. I don't think they do in person. I think they look a little bit bigger on camera than they do in person. Maybe that's because I'm partial to seeing this truck on 35s. It did have a 6-inch lift in it before, and I don't know. I think it looks fine. I was worried about tires rubbing, and they did. So hopefully that will help someone out that is thinking about what tire size that they can get away with. You can see that the slope of the fender there is raked back a little bit, kind of like this, from where factory is. And I did that myself. I made a video about it. I'm not a body guy, so you can see it is kind of wavy. I basically just kind of came into here and cut it back and then made a line down. And when this was out here, basically I took a pie cut out of it, and it's roughly like inch and a quarter. I gave all the details in my other video, so you can check that out if it's something you might want to do. But it allowed me to run these tires and clear them. They are 35s, but the actual tire size is 315, 75, 16. And in a Falcon Wild Peak, the actual spec is like a 34.7 or something like that. So it clears them now. It does have a lot of flex, roughly 10 inches or so in the front, 10, 10 and a half, and 10 and a half or 11 in the back is what they say. And it seems pretty accurate from what I have been able to find. I don't off-road this truck, so I haven't really kind of worked them to their limit, but just based off of how far it droops when you jack the truck up by the frame, and the little bit that I've kind of articulated it with a jack, trying to simulate full bump and where I need to get my bump stops. And I also just kind of pulled one tire up on a big rock I have in my backyard to see kind of how much flex I had and if my tires would rub. So they definitely are really flexible. I can post a picture of when I pulled up on that rock. As far as ride goes, that's another thing that I'm sure is important to a lot of people. That's the biggest reason I did this, because I don't mind how it sat before, and it was the ride that I didn't like. So I was after the ride. It rides really well. It rides better than this 2014 F-250 that I have, and it definitely just it soaks up a lot now that it didn't before. It's, you know, still an old truck, and it's got some bump steer and whatnot, but as far as handling, it's not the greatest, but it soaks up the bumps and stuff so much better now. This truck just wasn't good at anything before because I don't have the gearing to be a great highway runner. And then as far as back roads went, it just didn't have the suspension, and it would just, you know, be it'd ride like a buckboard and be jarring. And so really it was like a 50-mile-an-hour nice smooth pavement kind of truck. So I'm trying to kind of open up that range that it can be good at, and make it so that I can go on more back roads, and it isn't an awful ride. So definitely soaks up the bumps and stuff now. I think that they're great springs for off-roaders and everything. I think they're rugged. I think that they will take a lot of abuse and then go back to the ride height that they were, and not deform or anything like that, because of the fact that they are so many little leaves. And that's the whole claim to fame with the Offroad Design, you know, custom spring, is that it's many thin leaves rather than, you know, 3 thick leaves or whatever it is that all the other lift kit companies are. So ride is definitely good. I didn't go with a coilover setup, mostly for money and for just the time and installing. This setup was around $3,000 in this configuration, with the extended heavy duty rear shackles and Bilstein shocks. And it's roughly like $7,000 to $10,000 depending on shock package for the Offroad Design coilover conversion setup. And it's not worth it to me. I am not four-wheeling this, and I'm not, you know, off in the desert going through whoops and stuff like that. I don't use the capacity that those have anyway, and I'm just not willing to spend the money. So that was my reasoning on going with the leaf springs rather than the coil spring setup. I guess you could do it cheaper if you built it yourself, but it would just take more time doing research and building your own brackets and stuff like that. So it was a thought, and I'm sure it's a thought for a lot of people, considering doing something like custom springs and a different lift, something that, you know, is more capable and rides better than your typical lift. I think it is unique. You know, and most people throw a rough country lift kit in and call it a day. And I mean, nothing against that, because it gets the job done for cheap, but it definitely stands out when you do something different. As far as the bump stops go, I ended up actually going with the 4.5-inch bump stops front and rear, and that worked out just right. Doing the math on the travel and where it needs to stop. The suspension's supposed to stop like 2 inches into the travel on those bump stops, and that's pretty much where I need it to stop. So it worked out that way. And then in the back, I went with that 4.5-inch, but I had to put a 2x3 tube in there as a spacer to make it so that it will work right. And it's the 3-inch, you can see right there, it's the 3-inch is the vertical way. So those are the shackles I was talking about. They have different options for rear, but it seems like the best for travel and articulation and everything is basically having your shackle in the stock way rather than a flip. The tension style, and they've got it worked out right and dialed in. So that's the way I went. The only other thing I'll mention is that I went with no shims, front or rear, and that's how I did a bunch of research. And basically the rear, it ended up being, the angles are under the max that you want to have. Basically, you want your pinion angle and your transfer case angle to be parallel, and then it doesn't matter what your drive shaft angle is as long as the U-joint angles are under a certain degree. I want to say now that's 10 degrees. I don't remember now off the top of my head, but I think I have 5 degrees. And my pinion and my transfer case are parallel, so that's what I had to have out back. And then out front, my pinion angle is rough. Having a shim would help my pinion angle, but doing that messes with your caster angle. And I had shims before with the 6-inch lift that I had, and it bum steered all over the road. Still has a little bum steer. I think some of that is my alignment. There's one other thing I'll mention that could contribute to it, but the going no shims in the front helped a lot. It has a whole lot less bum steer than it did before, and the pinion angle, it is pretty bad, but because I don't four-wheel this truck, I almost never put in four-wheel drive, and it doesn't bind, especially at ride height. It's kind of close at full droop, but it is what it is. I need the performance on road rather than off road in four-wheel drive, so that's my reasoning there. So that other thing that contributes to bump steer potentially is that I have a raised steering arm, and basically with a 4-inch lift going with a stock steering arm and a lowered pitman arm will help you out, in theory, is what I have read. And I guess what you really want is your drag link here to be parallel with the angle of the leaf spring. And right now my drag link is basically overcompensated, so it's, my leaf spring is at an angle like this and my drag link is at an angle like that, so that can contribute to bum steer. So I think I will swap that out, and hopefully that will help. There's one other thing that I want to mention, and that is just basically why I went with a 4-inch lift rather than a 6-inch lift. I came from a 6-inch lift, like I mentioned, and my reasoning was just because Offroad Design says that anything above a 4-inch lift and you'll probably have issues with Driveline. And the reason is just because these flex so much that on articulation, this 4-inch lift can really turn into much more lift when you're, say one tire is dropped way down and it's on the side of your pumpkin. That front drive shaft is going to see a whole lot of angle and potentially too much length, and pop out, and you're going to need a new drive shaft or a lowered transfer case and the whole deal. So that's why I took their word for it, that that's the most you can go without doing more modifications. And I also kind of just want to gear this toward road manners, and lower is better for road manners, generally speaking, and it is a little easier to get in and out of now. So that was my reasoning on 4-inch. It was a tough choice to pick lift height, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and I don't regret it. It was a ton of work to cut those fenders, so maybe smaller tires would have been the way to go, but it's what I did, and it's unique, it's mine, so I'm pretty happy with it overall. I think it is worth doing if you have the money to throw at it. I think if it's a stretch, then you could probably get pretty close to the ride out of like a tough country ease ride or soft ride, skyjacker, I think it is. Those would probably be pretty good. So it's kind of what you're looking for and what you're willing to spend, but I do think that it is pretty nice now. So hopefully that helps.